In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I'm with Emilia Korczynska. She is heading over as the head of marketing at Userpilot. And obviously, we at Pathmark love buyer journeys, user journeys, customer journeys, however you want to call them. Actually, they're quite different in detail, but they basically have a very interesting mindset. They help people to, actually start and understanding products, getting the most of products once they're signed in, and obviously getting back into usage. So super interesting in the context of product-led growth, obviously. So we're curious to hear from Emilia on Userpilot. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lucas. So yeah, you said it all, like product-led growth. This is what we want to help our users achieve, right? So we're basically a product growth platform. That's how we like to call ourselves. And it consists of like a few modules, a few products that talk to each other, really. So, our probably most popular use case is new user onboarding, right? But we want to push our users to actually, go beyond this mindset that you onboard your new users and then you kind of can kick off and enjoy the rest of their journey and let them to just kind of lead them to their own devices. This is probably the worst mindset to have as a product marketer, because what happens is that your new user, once that they have completed their new user onboarding, they probably don't discover half of your product or more, right? And you end up with having features that are underused and that correlate like with higher retention, and you don't want to go down that path. So we help our users adopt the mindset of continuous onboarding, and just as you said, right, you pepper your user's journey with micro experiences before they convert. We kind of help our user do the same after the user has converted, right? So basically they think about the user's journey, the customer's journey. Sometimes, as you said, like this is the same, sometimes this is different, and how they can help the different personas on their user journey to hit their milestones faster, to achieve their goals, to get their jobs to be done faster. Yep. And that ultimately leads to higher conversion, to higher plans, so expansion revenue. That leads to higher feature adoption, higher user engagement, and that, of course, in the long run translates into higher growth. So we also allow you to basically communicate with your users, to ask them questions, to collect feedback. So we really cater to a range of personas on the product team. So these can be like product marketers who are really mostly interested in the go-to-market strategy and want to use Userpilot for like pushing new features and increasing, product metrics. So product adoption, product managers who are probably most interested in collecting feedback, right? And recruiting users for interviews, for discovery purposes. Then we have the product growth people who want to tweak with different metrics and see how, for instance, like creating a specific product experiment, an A/B test, like putting a tooltip somewhere, how that would affect, adoption of a particular feature. So really, it's a very versatile product that you can do a lot of things with. Yeah,
no, makes a whole lot of sense. And what I'm curious about is sort of, and what type of complexity, I know it's a very difficult question maybe, but like what types of products are well suited for experience like this? Like, when I'm evaluating, hey, should my product, have those journeys, have those experiences within the product? Like, what should I look for? What does my product need to have, or which problem should I have been running into in order to this actually be, helping us?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I actually was contemplating it a few months ago. I wrote a post about like when you don't need user onboarding and when you don't need to invest in tools like Userpilot. So kind of a classic case of repel marketing. You basically, if your product is a one-trick pony, if it's like a really, really simple micro SaaS, for instance, catering to one persona, and they immediately get the idea what you're doing, you're, for instance, in a super established niche, right? And people just know how it works. You haven't like really innovated in terms of your UX, right? Then probably you don't need to invest that much in building, complex secondary onboarding flows. They can do more harm than good, because they can just annoy your users who know what they want to do and what they need to do anyway. So if you have like this very high level of user engagement and product adoption, well, if your product is just literally one feature, then you'll probably have 100% product adoption. right? And then you probably don't need that. But whenever your product gets a bit more complex, right, you have different features catering to different personas, like maybe you have a couple of ICPs that come to your product with different jobs to be done, as it is in our case, right? Then the problem begins where your users are not getting where they should go first. I actually talked to another startup and they told me that they have like four core features, and they noticed an inverse correlation between like first month retention and the order in which the users discover their features. So basically, if they discover, say feature number 3, right, they are a lot more likely to churn than if they discover feature number 1 first. So what is this telling us? That we need to really plan the user journeys based on the user's persona, right, and their jobs to be done. And yeah, whenever you have this level of complexity, when things like that can happen, right, you should definitely invest in a tool like Userpilot. On the other end of the spectrum, so this is quite interesting because you have these tools that are super easy, right, and super straightforward, and then you don't need tools like that. Then you have the tools that are a bit more complex, and then you definitely see a lot of value from using a product like that. But then you have the enterprise grade, super complex tools like Salesforce. Well, again, these are not self-serve products. They need so much customization. They need so much, personalized onboarding. The sales cycles are super long. In that case, again, having some in-app experiences may help, right? Will probably not harm you, but you will not achieve what you want to achieve just with that, right? So in that case, I would say it's a nice to have, not a must have, as in the case of the mid-market products.
Yeah, makes a whole lot of sense. Very interesting. Actually, thanks for that distinguishing, especially to the upper experience, because I could see like very complex products, very quite difficult to actually create the user journey in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting. Now let's talk a little bit about growth. You obviously head of marketing at Userpilot. Maybe tell us a little bit, how do people learn about Userpilot? What is the key client acquisition channels that you guys are leveraging?
Yeah, so far we've been pretty much exclusively inbound, it probably won't come as a surprise if you look at our blog, if you look at our social media channels, that content is our main acquisition channel. So organic content is what we have heavily invested in this year for several reasons, like from the purely sort of business perspective, it's a cheap and evergreen channel, right? So, we have introduced a lot of ways to measure the return on investment, actually, which a lot of content teams do not. So we've built like pre-complex dashboards on Google Data Studio, B data box, to see basically which types of posts are converting month over month. We're looking at like how the position of our keywords change based on, like how well we optimize a particular post and with what tools. And then, of course, if we are building any backlinks, we choose the posts that we want to prioritize based on their conversion rates, right? And then we build links to those as a priority. And we also monitor how building these links affects the position of the keywords we want to rank for. So, on the one hand, we want to be found by people who are already looking for terms that indicate, they are interested in a solution like that. And on the other hand, we want to educate the market, right? So it's still a pre-nascent market, right? Like you probably have an experience of that yourself, that you go into a pretty complex store and you're like, where do I start, right? And you're not really guided through the product in a way that is effective. In the best, or maybe I should say worst case scenario, you have this super long product tool that is boring and that is not showing you what you want, right? But it's kind of dumping everything on you, which you forget like as soon as you click the next button. So there is still so much education to be done in the market, and we see it very clearly that where people mostly engage with keywords and topics around news onboarding, while the more sophisticated topics, they're kind of like, what is that? What is account expansion, right? What is secondary onboarding strategy? What is continuous onboarding? But, we sort of want to be the early. We want to be the thought leaders in the space. A lot of the things we publish is not like dumpster diving content, right? Where you just scrape the first page in Google and you reshuffle things and you regurgitate the information. Because a lot of the content we produce is like completely new in the space. So we interview product marketing, product management professionals. We share our own insights. We share our own experiment results. And we hope that this education, this groundwork that we are doing now will, pay off ultimately when these less popular keywords take off and when the market matures a bit, and then we will have been the first. So it's
very good. One question as a follow-up to this, because you mentioned you have a very data-driven content approach, which obviously a lot of folks maybe don't have to that level of sophistication. What is one thing that you learned? What was something that that maybe even surprised yourself, after having that very data-driven sort of content approach for a while now? Maybe there's one or two learnings or something that maybe surprised you on how to actually approach that would be curious.
Yeah, I would say it shouldn't have surprised me because I was already familiar with the Pareto rule, but at first I disregarded it, and then I learned the hard way that you still need to observe it. So you're going to make some bets, right? You're going to produce a lot of content. You need to produce a lot of content. And you can make some intelligent guesses, like what types of content, like the bottom of the funnel keywords, will lead to most conversions. But ultimately, you're not 100% sure how you will rank on Google. You can, of course, check that to a degree, right, with certain tools that are going to show you your potential position in SERPs based on your on-page, like metrics, like DR, link, strength profile, etc., right? But ultimately, you can only see which posts rank most and which posts convert most after a while, right? So, at some point we dropped the ball on content updates and guarding our position in SERPs, right? So making sure that the posts that are ranking and that are driving conversions stay in the high positions that we have achieved, right? And there was a point in time where we were producing a lot new content and our traffic didn't grow. It actually declined at some point, and I was like, what's going on, right? It shouldn't be happening. And then I realized, our competitors are not, sleeping either. They have been also producing content on the same topics, and some of them have overtaken us. So since then, we apply this Pareto rule to our content. So we invest most effort into the content that is already ranking, that is already producing results, right? So as I mentioned, building links, we build links very consciously to that pieces of content that we want to bump up in the SERPs. We also update our content regularly, adding more insights, adding more quality. We're using tools that give us insights to as to what we can still improve. And the rest, we deprioritize if something is we think
makes sense.
It's not super important yet.
Very cool. Maybe one last follow-up on this before we sort of getting to know you a little bit better. You mentioned the word conversion a couple of times. How do you actually, go about figuring out why they do or do not convert, let's say, on the Userpilot website? What is sort of the strategies, the tools? How do you think about that? That approach.
Right. So I know it's it's a very natural question for you guys to ask, because you have a conversion rate optimization tool in fact. And as I mentioned before we started the recording, I think I need to check you out, because we haven't done a whole lot on conversion rate optimization and actually doing A/B tests, or basically testing how different things, or placing the CTAs in different places would work for us. We have done a little bit to improve our conversion rates in terms of adding more CTAs, adding more opportunities for the users while they are consuming our content, for instance, to convert, right? So that has made a difference to our conversion rate. And interestingly, we had a big online conference this month. It finished just a couple of days ago. And in September, we changed a lot of our CTAs, right, to the conference. So funneling people down to check out the event rather than to book a demo with us directly. And we did see a drop in the conversion rate, quite significant one. So in the conversion rate demo. So it seems like it's working, that these CTAs like peppered and placed in different places on the website and on the blog do make a difference. Because, you know, like people are lazy, they don't want to click through a lot of things or scroll up or down to click on book a demo button. They need to have it right there in front of them. We have experimented a bit with copy and like the visuals of these CTA banners. So we found that putting a human face on, you know, the CTA banner makes a huge difference. So we are lucky to have a really amazing customer success team, and we just snap their faces all over the place, all over our banners, and that has really, you know, resulted in very high conversion rates from these banners. We also tried that with retargeting. So our growth manager laughed that she's never seen, you know, conversion rate, a click-through rate on retargeting ads like that, since we put the faces of our customer success managers there.
Interesting, actually. Let's switch gears a little bit, right? I want to get to know you a little bit. The show is also not just about the strategies and the growth, it's also getting to know a little bit the marketers behind a little bit. I have a couple of rapid fire questions to get to know you a bit. Are you ready for those?
Sure, yeah.
Very good. So what is the last book you read?
Oh, the last book I read is A Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres, so very much on brand. So she was actually speaking at our conference as well on the same topic. That's why I was curious about her latest book. And I wish I had read it 5 years ago. Honestly, it would have saved me so much time and money making mistakes that I made. It kind of translates the insights from lean startup into like a very, very actionable blueprint. So how can you, you know, how can you do the discovery in a continuous way to basically avoid product mistakes and avoid launching features that nobody's going to use because people don't really want them. What's the name of the book again, just for everybody? Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres. Yeah, it's pretty new. Yeah. Very good. Let's say everything in technology would be possible, right? There's no boundaries anymore. What's the one thing you would fix for your role? Oh, wow. Attribution. I would definitely. So as I said, we are like, I think we are really data driven for a content marketing team, I could say, because we have been mostly investing in content this year. So next year will probably be a different team, but now we have been content marketing team. But still, you know, it's so difficult to put exact value on your work and content. So we have applied a very conservative measure of success, basically counting the last touch conversions to MQLs from our content month over month, right? But it doesn't give us the full story. So there is a lot of data. But the problem is with combining the data from different sources and actually seeing trends and seeing outliers. Usually, I haven't seen a marketing team that would be big enough, right, to have a person that would be just sitting there and analyzing these data. And that's what, at this stage of technology, like we would need. Because there's so much data and so many insights that we're probably not acting on because we just don't have the time to dig through everything. Yeah. Very good. I want to give you the very last question. For that, I'll do a little bit of time travel, right? If we would go back to sort of the University of Cambridge times, right? And you're sort of, you know, you're heading out of education into the world of, I mean, I think you had some very interesting positions down the line, was in product, and then, you know, even being a founder.
what's the one advice you would give yourself along the journey?
I would give myself advice not to hold myself back because of my lack of experience or formal qualifications. So, you know, you come from continental Europe background as well, right? So I think I also studied in Germany, I studied in Poland, and then I moved to the UK and studied there. And we have a very different mindset in Europe where we're still like very much tied to formal qualifications, and we think that, well, if we haven't done something before, it means we can't do it. It's just kind of ridiculous, because then if we adopted this mindset like at any earlier point in our lives as children, we just wouldn't learn anything. So I would probably adopt this kind of Anglo-Saxon mindset. Like in the US, people from all walks of life start different kinds of businesses and learn on the jobs, right? Which I think is a lot better. And yeah, like you shouldn't be limiting yourself just by your formal experience.
Very cool. Emilia, I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting anything that we discussed or all that we discussed about Userpilot, what's the one thing that they should remember?
To be data driven and to pay attention to your old content, just like your new content, if you're applying the content strategy. And yeah, look at your data, look at your user journey as well, right? At any stage of the user journey. So before sign up and after sign up.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.